Hi everyone, and welcome along to today's Facebook Live. We are going to be talking about today, just checking this is all okay. Today we are going to be talking about the gig economy. It's a really popular topic of conversation at the moment amongst HR people, and it's been in the news a lot over the last few months, and it's something that I don't think we're going to hear the end of for a really long time, and it is something that does affect small businesses as well. So I thought I'd do a quick Facebook Live on it to just kind of give you an overview of what it is, how it may impact on you and your business, and what it is that you need to be aware of. So what is the gig economy? So if you haven't heard of it, essentially what it is a way of working where the people that are doing the work get paid for the gigs that they do rather than be a paid employee or get paid an hourly rate. So the key ones that have been in the news a lot are the Uber drivers and the delivering people on bikes as well. So I know, like in Chichester, we've just had Deliveroo come in. It was very exciting for lots of people, but in London, it's been around for a while. You've got Deliveroo, you've got Uber, you've got Uber Eats, and it all runs on a similar basis. So essentially, the people that are working for them get paid for the gigs that they do and the deliveries that they make, rather than the actual time that they spend on the job. So for example, in Chichester, we see the Deliveroo guys all sat around on benches in the street, and they're sat there waiting for an order to come through. So they're not paid for the time that they're sitting around waiting for the orders to come in, they're just paid for when they actually make the deliveries. So for a lot of businesses, this is a really smart and sensible way to have a workforce. And I don't think it's something that hasn't been around before. I just think that it has become a hot topic of conversation. Now, what some people get confused about is the difference between the gig economy and 0 hours contracts, because they're both quite controversial things. So the difference is that the gig economy, you are essentially, you are set up as a self-employed person, so there's no obligation there for the company to provide you any work, and there's also no obligation on you to do any work. It's fairly similar with casual contracts. The key difference is that people on casual contracts are seen as workers, and they are entitled to holiday. So they're entitled to accrue holiday for the work that they do. So the key difference between that is that, you don't get holiday pay if you're a Deliveroo driver. The other issue is that quite often what is being said is that the amount of time that the guys are spending waiting around to do the deliveries on a shift basis, it can take their earnings below the national minimum wage. Now obviously if you are a casual worker, you have to be paid at least the national minimum wage for that. So again, that's another sort of key differentiator between the two. But essentially for both elements, there is very little guarantee of work. Well, there's no guarantee of work for either of them. With casual contracts, you might be guaranteed a certain amount of hours per week, but if it's a true 0 hours contract, you're not going to be guaranteed any hours for the work that you do. So obviously a lot of this has been in the news because it is felt that this can be an exploitative practice. So for a lot of people, they love this sort of work, they love the flexibility, they love the fact that they can perhaps be a student and then fit this work in and around their studies, they don't have to commit to anything. But the key issue is where people are being exploited, and that's why it has come to light in the press, and it was part of Theresa May's manifesto and the other parties as well. They're talking about casual contracts and 0 hours contracts. So it is a really hot topic at the moment. The other issue is that there's no employment protection. So somebody who is doing gig work, they have no protection for unfair dismissal, they have no protection for any redundancy pay. So yeah, it's just, it's being self-employed. but the way that it is sometimes done can be seen as being exploitation. So there are two big cases that you've probably seen about in the news or heard about, and one was with Uber and one is with Deliveroo as well. So the one with Uber, it was held that actually Uber drivers should be workers and not self-employed individuals doing gig work. Now what that meant for Uber is that they would then be eligible to pay people holiday pay. So, you know, as you can imagine, for those of you that have businesses, holiday pay can be an extra huge cost that you have to bear as a business. So that was what was found in that one. But I think what these cases are going to do is challenge employment practices and challenge people to look at their own employment practices. And then at the start of this month, there was something called the Good Work Report that was commissioned to address this very issue. So it was commissioned to address the gig economy and 0 hours contracts. So I'm just going to read you some of the key things that came through from that report. So the first thing was that workers who are not employees, so like your Uber driver or your delivery person, they should be named as dependent contractors rather than self-employed workers. So that was one recommendation that came through. Another recommendation was to give people on 0 hours contracts a right to guaranteed hours after they've worked for you for a year. So if you've got people within your organisation that are on 0 hours contracts, what they're recommending, they're not saying you have to do this, but what the recommendation is after a year, you give those people guaranteed hours. Okay. You should also be able to evidence that your workers meet the national minimum wage. And another recommendation was to allow rolled up holiday pay to be paid. So I can't remember how long ago it was, but a few years ago, you used to be able to roll up holiday pay in people's hours. So for example, somebody might be paid £8 an hour and then they get an extra £2 an hour for holiday pay. And that used to be allowed, and now that they're recommending that we do that again, so that people who are on casual, contracts, they get their holiday paid as part of their normal hourly wage. So these are the recommendations that have come through. Now, obviously, they're not law; you don't have to do them yet, but there's a few in there that might work quite well. So that's kind of the boring legal stuff on it, and what's being currently said by the powers that be. But I just wanted to kind of give you my view on casual work and what I see happening with our clients and people that have small businesses. So the way that I see it is that casual work and people who are, for all intents and purposes, self-employed, working for small businesses is so common. We do it. The girls that work for us, they're self-employed. Many of our clients have people on 0 hours contracts, and they're doing it in a very legitimate, honest and open way that isn't exploiting people at all. When you've got a small business, one thing that can absolutely kill your business is if you don't keep your costs down and you don't have cash in the bank. So if you haven't got those two things, then basically your business can go under really quickly. And often in a business, the biggest costs are staff. So beyond your office and your rates and your rent and everything like that, often the biggest cost in a business is staff. So for small businesses or people just setting up, having people on 0 hours or that are self-employed and just get paid for the work that they do can be a really good way of helping you get started in your business. Beyond that as well, it can just allow for flexibility both ways. So say if you've got a very seasonal business where you're a lot busier in the summer than you are in the winter, it just allows you that flexibility so that actually you're not having to pay for people not doing any work when there isn't the work available. Same if you have a client-facing business like we do, for example, there are real peaks and troughs in the work. So some months we might be super busy, no capacity to take on any more work, but then in other months we might have capacity available. So as a smart business person, you want to be looking at your costs and going, well, actually, I don't need this person every single month throughout the year. So that's when it can work really well. And I always think as long as you are honest with people from the word go, and you're saying to, you know, people that you're taking into your business that this is the situation, this is how we do things, and we will give you as much notice as possible, have a proper agreement in place so everyone knows where they stand, there shouldn't be an issue. The issue is where you're not being honest with people, and people, for some of the cases that happened a couple of years ago, they were taken on you know, contracts, full-time contracts, and then switched to a 0 hours contract. Now clearly that's not fair. You can't employ someone and then turn around and say to them, actually we don't want to guarantee you any hours or give you, you know, any stability, so we're going to put you on a 0 hours contract. Clearly that is not the right thing to do. But if you are open and honest with people, and you are doing it for genuine reasons, that actually, you know, for a business, this is how you need to work it in order to survive, then that is okay. It just is important to keep an eye on the situation. So for example, if you've had someone on a casual or a 0 hours contract for 2 years, 3 years perhaps, and you know, every single week they have worked for you for 20 hours every single week, you should really look at that arrangement, because the chances are, if there were to ever be a problem, that person could argue that they were really a proper, fully fledged employee, and should you need to dismiss them or make them redundant for any reason, then they should be entitled to the same benefits as somebody who was a permanent employee. So just keep an eye on the situation, see how things are going, and if it is turning into more regular work, then the sensible thing to do would be to actually offer guaranteed hours and just make sure that that person was very clear on the arrangement. With self-employed people as well, again, it's just a really good idea to keep an eye on the situation as it develops, because you don't want someone who has potentially been self-employed in your business for 2, 3, 4 years, they don't have any other clients, you are their sole source of income, because again, it could be argued that actually that person is an employee of your business, so if you did need to release them in any way, then they would be entitled to all of the usual statutory benefits and, you know, the processes that need to be followed. Equally, from an employee's perspective as well, it's only fair that if someone has had that arrangement for a long time, then they should be treated fairly and get all of the other benefits that everyone else gets as well. One of the things that we've done with clients before who have had this set up, and it's really common in like design agencies, marketing agencies, there can often be quite a lot of freelancers. So we've done a little bit of an audit and just had a look at who's in the business, how long they've been there, and identified where the risks may be. Similarly, with casual contracts, we will be really honest with a client and say, well, hang on a minute, you know, this arrangement could potentially be a little bit sticky, and actually maybe you need to look at it and think about bringing people onto a full-time permanent contract. So I personally think that, you know, the gig economy, as it's being called, or just flexible ways of working, is a really smart way to operate as a business. You just need to make sure that you are doing things right and you're not taking advantage of people, or, you know, not paying people what they are entitled to. Quite often the clients that we're working with, they've got people on casual contracts or 0 hours contracts, and when you actually speak to them, speak to the people that are doing the work, they really like that way of working because it gives them flexibility as well. So I think there's been a lot of bad press about it, you know, it was viewed very negatively in the press, but a lot of people that work in this way actually really value this way of working, and it suits them and it suits their lifestyle. So I don't think we should ban them. I don't think they should be completely taken away at all. I think if you were to do that, you'd see a number of small businesses go under in a very short space of time. My phone just rang then, just turned it off. I don't think that that is the best way of doing it, but definitely just make sure you're reviewing your practices and making sure that things are being done fairly. So as always, if there's any questions or anything you'd like to ask us, then get in touch. We'd be very happy to help, and we will see you this time next week. Let us know if there's any particular topics you would like us to cover, and we will do our best to answer them. See you next week. Bye.